Sean, did you watch that shit?
Unfortunately, yes.
Why?
I was at a bar. Someone had it on their phone. We all huddled around. It was a complete waste of time.
Look, man, I was Sam I am about watching that fight. I absolutely refuse. And it was one of those things about that Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight and me not watching it that, like, when people asked me about it and I said I wasn't watching it because, you know, people got respect for me, it then made them kind of look inward and say, like, different stuff about themselves. So, for example, back in the day, my daddy was so gangster about his that he ain't watched the March on Washington. My mama was at the March on Washington. My daddy did not watch. My daddy thought that it was a level of compromise unbefitting a true revolution. So my dad's the sort of dude that people respect. So he would show up places and people would be embarrassed that they was watching the March on Washington. Like, in my head, I had imagined them hitting the remote control and turning it off, except there wasn't no remote control in 1963. If he walked in on you and that shit was on, what was you gonna do?
That's all that was on.
Yes. What you gonna do? Run over and turn to the other channel? You know what I'm saying? There wasn't even no channel 26 by then. It was not an option. But anyway, no, I was not going to watch that fight. There was no way it was gonna work. Like, CNN called me. I did the show with Laura Coates, and I told them going in, like, look, man, this is a farce. Like, we need everything that I'm going to talk about on the basis of this has to go to the place where it's a farce, okay? And so she was still prepared to ask me questions like this was real, and I was incapable of pretending like it was real. And she's like, who do you think is going to win the fight? I'm like, it ain't going to be us. That's all I know. How am I supposed to know who's going to win that fight, right? All I have seen is a couple of clips. Like, I promise you, it was so wild about it. And I've said this many times before. I've said it in different contexts, and I need you to understand this right now, okay? I appreciate all of you who listen to my show, who consume the content that I produce. Like, I do. And I think all of you guys know how much I appreciate you on that. But you also know something I've told many of you many times. Never, and I mean never, ever, never assume that I am as whack as you. No matter what we're talking about here, I might be just as whack as you, right? But you should never be sure, ever. I have been working on this anti-whackness campaign for so long that you should stop and ask yourself, if you feel a little bit whack about what you're doing, no. Like, I should be doing anti-whackness seminars, okay? I feel like that would run counter to a lot of DEI initiatives because whack people are people too, right? We got to let them participate. But I am anti-whackness. That is me. I'm not trying to shut it down. I'm trying to ramp it up. I am anti-whackness. And that fight was whackness, and y'all knew that fight was whackness, but y'all got yourselves caught all up in some hype, and thereby you had to watch it. And then you're like, well, I'm not really paying for it, but you are paying for it because you pay for the Netflix and you watched it. Let me ask you a question. Did you go to somebody's house to watch it? Did you have people over to watch it? Because that's the real test. I'm going to be honest with you. Sean, I've heard about people like you who maybe watched it at a bar or whatever it is. Did anybody have a fight party for this? I ain't heard nothing about that. Did anybody have a fight party?
I have friends who, like combat sports, but the only fight party that was scheduled was for the Saturday night John Jones fight. An actual good fight. I didn't get a single invite for the Tyson-Jake Paul fight.
By the way, I have never been to an MMA fight party. Maybe you have, but I can't lie. That sounds like a sausage party.
1,000%.
Like, I just don't feel like the MMA fight party. That's no. Like a boxing fight party. Oh no. They gonna be some work. MMA fight party. No. That sounds like the Kielbasa Open.
I have a great story about that. My friend brought his wife to an MMA watch party, and when she showed up, she was like, "Why are we here again?" And they were like, "Oh, it's an MMA party." And she immediately called an Uber and left.
Yeah. They don't even want you there. You know what I'm saying?
No.
But anyway, That's how you know this wasn't real, man. That's how you know this wasn't a farce. Two things. One, wasn't nobody really talking about having no fight party as far as I could know. And number two, and it's the way you know it wasn't real, it was a white man fighting a black man and America was not divided. Yet somehow people were going to watch. That's how you know this wasn't real, okay? Now, the reason I wanted to talk about this fight or what it was and everybody coming away feeling so unsatisfied, and again, I don't know why you didn't think that you would come away unsatisfied, but everybody coming away so unsatisfied. I want to talk about something that's a little bit larger, something that's a little bit broader. Hold on, let me tell the people on the internet that I'm talking about that fight that they watched that I did not watch. You know, again, never assume I'm as whack as you.
I will say, Bo, I think as someone who did watch the fight and was around people who were like kind of somewhat excited, I think everyone forgot that Mike Tyson's 58 even throughout the entire like presser and the advertising of it. And then they saw him in the ring and they're like, oh my God, he's an old man.
Well, I think a big part of it with him being 58, first of all, never seen a fight where the interview in the locker room is between the fighter and his son Amir, who I met once. Yo, this is a true story. So me and Pablo had gone to do PTI the summer of 2017, I guess, right? This is in advance of High Noon. We trying to get people accustomed to the idea of us. And so we're there, and I got on this Mike Tyson t-shirt that says, thuns out, guns out. And I'm assuming it's Mike Tyson license, right? Yeah, thuns out, guns out. That's what it is. It should have said thuns out, guns out, but it didn't. It said thuns out, guns out. But anyway, I got the shirt on. And I'm in the elevator, me and Pablo, and his kid with a real big neck. He look at me and Pablo, and look at me and is like, yo, I see your shirt, man. That's my dad's shirt. I was like, oh, for real? Cool. And I let him walk away, at which point Pablo looks at me and goes, did he say Mike Tyson was his dad? And I'm like, yes, I thought so. I was entertaining the possibility maybe his dad designed the shirt. The problem that I had was with the life that Mike Tyson has lived, I wasn't sure, like, how he felt about Mike Tyson being his dad. Does that make sense? Like, I didn't know what the love situation was in the house.
Was he in on the joke in a like warm way, or was he like, nah?
Yeah, or like when's the last time you talked to him? Like, I don't have any answers to any of these questions, so I'm just letting it slide. But anyway, that interview that Mike did where he said, I love you at the end, and then he kissed the beer on the cheek, and it was so, like, touching. And then Mike walked away, and for whatever reason, the Netflix dude panned down, and you saw Mike Tyson's bare naked ass. It didn't have to be that way. People are like, oh, cameraman did it by accident. That cameraman ain't do that by no accident.
He sees the whole frame. You know, he chooses where to zoom in and out of.
Even if he doesn't see the frame, he see Mike Tyson got his ass out.
Exactly.
He didn't just show, he been in there, right? He decided to do that for whatever reason. But anyway, I've talked a while about this, and I've tried to, like, change the focus of the way that I do things. I hope that some of you have noticed. I hope that you have found it somewhat refreshing. If I haven't done a good job of conveying this clearly through my work, then that's on me. But what I've tried to do is I'm trying to focus in more on sports, be a little bit less like hyper analytical about it. And, you know, I don't want to say mean about things because I don't think I'm typically mean. What I'm being critical of, I want to change the way I look at things. And I really want to lean in more about the things that we love about this, right? The things that make us feel good, because I think that we get in this to feel. And I don't think we talk nearly enough in sport about why it is that we actually love this stuff, or why we keep coming back, and why we talk about it all the time. And why even to this day, man, I have people ask me all the time that they think I could be doing these larger, more important things to talk about in this world. No, man, I still find this stuff enjoyable to watch. I still find it enjoyable to talk about, right? I still find it interesting. It's kind of like Keith Richards talked about holding a guitar, and he's like, 6 strings and all these notes. How could you ever get bored? Like, I still really dig this. But I do think that overall, we don't talk about the things anymore that are truly why we're here. And this fight pointed out something that I think we need to really kind of take heed of and be careful what sorts of things that we offer these companies and these enterprises positive reinforcement about, and that they keep giving them to us. Something that is fundamental that we need to understand and get, right? Don't ever let them tell you that sports is entertainment. It's not. Sports is entertaining. Sports may entertain you, but sports is not entertainment. And as you hear me say that, there's a good chance it may land with you in a certain way. Some of you may push back. Some of you, it may be the thing that you've always wanted to hear. But I think something worth pointing out, and I say this as somebody who does think that a lot of people take sports entirely too seriously, right? Like, I think there's any question about that, it can foster a lot of negativity that comes out here. But I think I've talked about this in interviews. But if you haven't read any of those interviews, it's fine. I did a show on HBO called Game Theory for a couple of seasons. And when they asked me to do the show, they presented me a deck, and I looked at the deck, and it was very clear that this show was geared toward a comedian. In fact, the original host of the show was a comedian. And I remember I read through the deck, and I did my first Zoom call with all the people. I said, hey, man, I'll tell you right now, this deck don't work for me. Like, this deck is for a comedian, but I'm the only person, but this show works for me, and I'm the person you need to do this show. And my rationale was, all these sports TV shows that people do, like these sports comedy shows, those shows tend not to work because people take sports too seriously for you to just make a joke out of it, right? Like, if you're going to be the person that comes in to make a joke out of sports, you got to be somebody that those people respect, where they believe your opinion got some level of gravity, because they take this stuff entirely too seriously for you to just make a joke out of it. That's how this goes with sports. And I just think we have so many examples in so many places of people taking it incredibly seriously that what I'm saying on one hand seems very obvious, but on the other hand, they still try to give you some bullshit like Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. And what was so wild about it to me was how many people showed up. Not just the people in the crowd, like the 80,000 people, the idea that there were celebrities who wanted to be there. Like, this was Tyson, like this was Frazier Ali in 1971. Right? Like, people actually wanted to be there and be on camera for this obvious farce. And I'm like, that's not what this stuff is, and it's not what it's supposed to be. Okay? I can find it wild enough and somewhat frustrating that, like, real live boxers, actual professionals, cannot generate the same heat as a fake boxer and an old boxer in a fight where it looked, from what people have told me and from the little bit of clips that I saw, that everybody had an agreement to go home not hurting. Like, I think Mike Tyson was in the house for the fight at Madison Square Garden the next day. You know what I mean? That motherfucker 58 years old and just had a boxing match. If it was a real boxing match, he'd still be in bed. You know what I'm saying? Like, when we allow these companies to turn everything around these games into some level of spectacle, and the spectacle outweighs the competition, we as fans are going to wind up in a really, really, really bad place, because we see this happen across the board with all kinds of other things. Music is a great example of this, that once that big money gets in, they start stripping away from the essence of it. You see it in its own way in the movie game. That same thing is going to happen. Sports is the place where it's the hardest for them to do this, because the competitions are so fundamental and so unscripted, and the urgency of the game is dictated by the worker bees in a way that overall the money has not been able to ruin, though they have tried. But I think with the NBA, they've lost the plot on what it is that people are actually into when it comes to basketball, and we're starting to see ratings reflect that. That's a longer discussion for another day. But I think they tried to create a product that isn't truly in line with what people really want. And I think that in a much different way, what you saw happen with that fight was a display of a product that people didn't want, because people want their sports to matter. People want their sports to be real. They didn't get something real, and then they all looked up and were like, I can't believe I fell for this in the end. And yeah, you did. I'm not even really going to be that hard on you at this point about it, right? You fell for it, okay? Anti-Wagness, join the movement, but y'all fell for it. Got you. It's the people higher up that I'm looking at, and I'm like, hey, man, we want the real thing. Stop giving us the fake, wherever the fake may come from. We want the real thing. I would also like to say one last thing before I go. This is to you, Netflix. Now, my understanding that a lot of you guys had some problems as you tried to watch the fight on Netflix, and it gave you some buffering and everything else. And look, people complained about that with this silly little fight, but in the end, they were only kind of invested. They didn't really care. It was announced that Beyonce will be playing halftime of the Ravens and Texas game that is on Christmas Day. And Netflix, I'm here to tell you right now, fake boxing fans will let it slide. That hive will be buzzing and stinging your asses to kingdom come if you don't get this thing rolling by halftime of that game right there. I don't think Ted Sarandos is out here listening to this show, but if you are, you know, some people better be in there pulling some all-nighters, because they going to be all biters Bzzz. Oh, damn, I got stung in the ass again. The NBA is in full swing, which means you could turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite teams only on Prize Picks. You can make a Prize Picks lineup between the NFL and the NBA in as little as 60 seconds. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make Prize Picks the #1 fantasy sports app. So make sure you go to prizepicks.com/Bomani and use code Bomani for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/Bomani. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.